Phil Mickelson allegedly waited until Pat Perez left the room. That single detail from the scratch report is why fans are furious. A teammate, a friend, a fellow San Diego kid, and the accusation says Lefty made his move on the man's wife the moment the door closed. Ashley Perez goes on record. Shipnuck publishes, a spokesperson calls parts of it false. Perez himself says he is not talking about Phil. Years ago, he called something between them uncrossable and unforgivable and refused to explain. Now a golfer's wife reveals she kept a private recording of Mickelson's apology this entire time, and that podcast rant finally has context. The PGA Tour ecosystem is in open chaos over it. Majors skipped, Birkdale abandoned, Defamation Council retained. What shocked everyone was not just the allegation, it was learning. She now says she felt groomed from the day they met. Attributed claims, yes. His camp disputes them, yes. But the timeline I am about to show you is documented, and it is damning on its own. Hit subscribe and tell me your honest first take below, because this one splits people. Now here is where the story actually starts. Long before any of this, Phil Mickelson and Pat Perez were something close to family. Both men grew up in San Diego, both learned the game on the same municipal tracks and junior circuits, and both carried that hometown bond on to the biggest stages in golf. Their careers could not have looked more different, though. Mickelson was the golden child from the start, a lefty with impossible hands, an amateur who won a PGA Tour event while still in college, a superstar before he ever cashed a professional check. Perez had to claw for everything. No majors, no Ryder Cups, just 2 decades of grinding to keep his card and a reputation as one of the most honest talkers in the sport. One man became the face of golf's charm. The other became its blue collar. That contrast is exactly why what allegedly happened between them cuts so deep. Because when Mickelson invited Pat and Ashley Perez to stay near him during the 2015 Barclays in Edison, New Jersey, it read as a gesture between old friends. Ashley later said the families had known each other since 2014, and by her account, Phil had been warm to her from the very first meeting. She now describes that warmth very differently, but we will get there. At the time, an invitation from the biggest star in American golf felt like an honor. His charm was always the superpower. The grin, the thumbs up, the eye contact with every fan behind the ropes. According to the people who know him best, that instinct to win a room never switches off. Keep that in mind as the night unfolds. The evening at the center of everything took place during that Barclays week at Plainfield Country Club, where the Parizis were staying in a villa next door to Mickelson's. According to Ashley's account in the scratch report, the 3 of them were sharing red wine at Phil's villa when Pat excused himself to use the restroom. She alleges that in those few minutes alone, Mickelson pulled out his phone, showed her a nude photo of himself, and propositioned her. Sit with the alleged mechanics of that for a second. A man waiting for his friend to leave the room, by her telling, so he could make a move on that friend's wife. She says she was stunned and did not tell Pat right away. The tournament still had rounds to play. The men still had to share a range and a locker room, and she reportedly carried it alone until the event ended. Only afterward, by her account, did she tell her husband what had happened next door. Nothing about this was public. No reporter knew, no fans knew, and the sport rolled on with Mickelson as its most bankable smile. Her allegation stayed inside 2 marriages for years, which is precisely what makes the next part of this story so unusual, because most buried disputes between golfers stay buried forever. This one left evidence. Mickelson, according to the scratch report, apologized to Pat Perez for the incident, and he reportedly did so more than once. Somewhere in that stretch of damage control, Ashley made a decision that would follow Phil for the next decade. She kept a recording of one of those conversations. Think about what that choice means. People do not preserve audio of an apology by accident, and they certainly do not hold on to it for 11 years without a reason. She has since said she came to believe Mickelson had been grooming her from the day they met in 2014, a characterization his camp pushes back on hard, and one you should weigh, knowing it is her word describing her own experience. Whether that recording captures a man owning a terrible mistake or something worse, nobody outside that circle can say because the audio itself has never been made public. Its existence is the fact. Its contents are the question. That question is the reason this scandal behaves differently from every other Mickelson controversy, and there have been plenty because for the first time, the story is not his word against a rumor. Somewhere there is tape. Here is the part that should genuinely bother you. Pieces of this were hiding in plain sight for years, and almost everyone missed them. When Alan Shipnuck published his unauthorized Mickelson biography in 2022, it contained a brief, sanitized version of the villa story. Phil allegedly showing Ashley a photograph she found offensive. Both agents said to be present that evening, Steve Loy and Jeff Koski, called the account absolutely untrue, and Pat Perez himself would only say it was a matter between them that had been handled. The story died on contact. Then Perez went on a podcast and lit a flare nobody could decode. Phil had crossed a line with him that was uncrossable and unforgivable, he said. An apology had been given for the action, and forgiveness was still impossible. Fans spent years guessing what that meant. Money, ego, LAV politics, some card game gone wrong. Every theory missed. Meanwhile, the man at the center of it was reaching the highest altitude of his career. At 50, Mickelson won the 2021 PGA Championship and became the oldest major winner in history, mobbed by a crowd that adored him. The LIV deal that followed made him one of the richest athletes alive, even as Shipnuck's book, with its explosive quotes about the Saudi League, nearly derailed the launch. The gambling stories and the bookie allegations put the first hairline cracks in the image, yet the grin survived all of it. By the start of 2026, Phil Mickelson stood as a six-time major champion with a nine-figure fortune, a loyal fan base, and a secret sitting in a phone that did not belong to him. The tape was patient. His luck was not. The unraveling started quietly in February of this year when Mickelson abruptly stepped away from competition, and his representatives offered 5 words that would end up doing an enormous amount of work: a private family health matter. He surfaced once in March at LEV's South Africa event and finished tied for 48th, an afterthought in a field he once would have owned. Then Augusta came and went without him. A 3-time Masters champion, a man whose short game was practically built for that property, simply did not show. The U.S. Open followed. The one major he has never won, the tournament that broke his heart 6 times as a runner-up, and he did not even attempt to qualify. Individually, each absence had a plausible cover. Strung together, they formed a shape that golf media was slow to name, partly out of respect for the family health explanation and partly because nobody yet knew what was coming. The first domino fell in early June when a report revealed that Mickelson was no longer a member of his longtime home club in the San Diego area, with the departure tied to alleged unwanted advances toward a female employee. His own hometown, the community that raised his legend, had quietly shown him the door, and his team retained defamation counsel to fight what they called false rumors around it. 2 weeks later came reporting that his exits from 2 additional San Diego clubs had also followed questionable personal conduct. 3 clubs, 1 city, all before a single national headline existed. Then the detonation. In late June, Scratch published Shipnuck's full investigation and the details of its construction matter as much as its contents. 19 sources, vetting by 2 top media attorneys, a dedicated fact-checker. This was not a gossip blog swinging blind, and the twist that made the whole sport gasp is that Scratch was set up by the PGA Tour itself and is run by the same company behind the full Swing series on Netflix. The tour's own media ecosystem published the most damaging story of Mickelson's life. At the center of it stood Ashley Perez, on the record under her own name, telling the Villa story in full for the first time. The wine, the photo, the proposition, the apologies that followed, and the recording she had kept all along. Golf social media did not simmer, it detonated Within hours, the old Perez podcast clip was everywhere, replayed with entirely new ears. Uncrossable, unforgivable. 4 years of mystery collapsed in a single afternoon as fans realized what Pat had been refusing to say all along, and that resurfaced clip became the moment the audience picked sides. Some saw a wronged family finally telling the truth. Others saw an 11-year-old grievance weaponized against a man already down. Mickelson's camp came out swinging, and their statement deserves to be read carefully rather than shouted about. Some of the circulating allegations are false, his spokeswoman said, while others revisit mistakes he has already acknowledged publicly or privately, and stacking disputed claims next to admitted ones, she argued, does not make the disputed ones credible. Notice what that statement does and does not do. It concedes that real mistakes exist and have been owned. It disputes the framing, not every fact. His team also accused a segment of golf media of treating his private and family life as theirs to exploit, and repeated that his priority is becoming the husband, father, and man his family deserves. Pat Perez, for his part, gave reporters almost nothing. He was not talking about Phil, full stop. A silence that somehow said more than a press conference. Amy Mickelson has said nothing publicly at all, and whatever she's carrying through this, she did not choose any of it. The final blow landed at Royal Birkdale. Mickelson withdrew from the Open Championship, ending a run of 17 consecutive appearances, and the Telegraph reported the decision had been made 2 weeks before the scratch story ever published. Draw whatever inference you want from that timing. The connection is unconfirmed, and the official explanation remains the family health matter, but the dates are the dates. The only other Open he has missed since 1994 was Turnberry in 2009, when Amy was fighting breast cancer and the entire sport wrapped its arms around him. That absence united golf in sympathy. This one has split it straight down the middle, and the same 3 words that once described a hero's sacrifice now sit under a cloud of doubt through no fault of the family they describe. Step back far enough, and this stops being a story about one villa in New Jersey. A sport that markets civility spent more than a decade not telling this story, while, according to multiple reports, clubs in one city kept acting on conduct the public never heard about. The institution that finally broke the silence was funded by the tour that built him, and the person who made it undeniable was not a rival, not a journalist chasing a scalp, but a golfer's wife who kept one recording and waited. 6 majors are on his record forever. What happens to the grin, the thumbs up, and the legend attached to them now depends on questions only 2 people can answer. What exactly is on that tape, and why did it take 11 years for the world to learn it exists? Mickelson deserves the presumption that disputed claims are exactly that, disputed. Ashley Perez deserves to have her account heard without being dismissed as opportunism. You get to decide which silence bothers you more. The one his camp is keeping now, or the one an entire sport kept for a decade. Drop your verdict in the comments, because this one is going to be argued about for years. And if you want the next chapter of this story the moment it breaks, subscribe and turn on notifications. This scandal is not finished, neither are we.